Death of a Unicorn is A24's brand new horror comedy. And yes, like I said, Death of a Unicorn. This is about a unicorn that gets killed by Paul Rudd on a road trip with his daughter. And well, it ends up being a medical miracle. What's going on, buddy? Welcome back to a brand new movie review. Today I'm discussing Death of a Unicorn. Again, this stars Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, Richard E. Grant, Will Poulter, and many more. But this is about a father-daughter duo who hit a unicorn with their car and bring it to the wilderness retreat of a mega wealthy pharmaceutical CEO. And it just ends up being that this unicorn is a miracle to the medical industry. But what happens? What are the problems with that? What consequences may they have? That is what this film very much asks. And I've been pretty excited for this film ever since it was announced. When that concept was announced, Paul Rudd, Jenna Ortega, the kill a unicorn, what happens after that? Well, that's just insane. That's awesome. And it's A24 making it. So you'd expect this to be weird and unique. And for the most part, it's weird in the vein that it's unicorns. And I would say basically like you can equivalent this film to being one part Jurassic Park with unicorns instead of the raptors, like, you know, the whole raptor scene. And then another part, a satire towards the medical industry. And I think the film works on all those levels, but it never goes above and beyond more than that. This is more of just a fun horror comedy, but not one that like blew my mind. I'd say I love this movie. I wouldn't say I hate this movie. I wouldn't even say that I really liked it. I kind of just thought it was fun and liked it. And it's not going to change anything in this world, but it's not going to be your new favorite film. It's one that I could passably recommend, but I wanted a bit more from it. And sometimes, I'm sure maybe you've been in my footsteps before, where you leave the theater after watching a movie and you were so excited about it, you really liked it, or maybe you just liked it, but you left wanting more from it. And that's kind of how I feel in Death of a Unicorn. So definitely leave your thoughts down below. Hit that like and subscribe button. And without further ado, let's dive into this. So first off, the performances. Paul Rudd, decent in here. Can't say anything bad about the Rudd Master, but I wanted a little bit more from his performance. I don't know if he was just miscasted in here or if he just didn't feel right for the role, but I thought there's some emotional moments that I could have used a little bit more oomph. And again, I don't know if that's the writing, his performance, miscasting, whatever it may be. He was fine in here. He was enjoyable. It's Paul Rudd. I'm always going to like him in something. But I think really much the big standouts in here is Jenna Ortega, Will Poulter, and Richard E. Grant. Jenna Ortega is just great. I love her in a lot of things, and I really liked her in this role primarily. I liked the dynamic and the usage of her character. Will Poulter was just fucking insane. Rich boy, daddy's little mama's boy who's a rich kid. That's the type of role that he plays here. He's fun for it. And Richard E. Grant is the big CEO. And, you know, Richard E. Grant's going to eat that scenery away. But I also want to give a shout out to Anthony Carrigan, who I don't think is going to get talked about enough in here. He was phenomenal in the show Barry, if you never got to see that, but he's also great as Griff in here. And I think Griff is like the automatic standout. Like every single sequence, the way that of his body humor, he really pulls off a lot of the laughs. And I think that is a big part of what Death of the Unicorn really works for. And I say the laughs is because I thought all the comedy in here was actually pretty solid. Nothing too cringy, nothing too like eye rolling. Like every single one of the jokes in here made me laugh. Every single one of the moments made me giggle or just have a smirk on my face. And that's a big part. Comedy can be very subjective and very much hard to hit, but I had a blast watching it with that, and I like when horror can dive into that. As I mentioned, this is also a horror movie, and very much when it dives away from the comedy, it is going full-on raptor sequence from Jurassic Park, but instead of raptors and dinosaurs, it's unicorns. And I thought that this was a big piece, was building up the tension. I can't say that the tension was there, but I can definitely say that it nails in the kills, the brutality, and the gruesome. If you've ever seen Cabin in the Woods where like the unicorn runs out for one split second and kills someone, you basically get a lot of that for half of this movie. And it's fun for what that is. Seeing the unicorn murder people in just so many different ways, whether it's with its horn or its body, and seeing different elements about the unicorn made it lovely. I had a blast seeing how they were going to intercept and bring the unicorn into different situations. And I also really liked how it was kind of like an homage to a lot of other horror icon things. There's one part where Paul Rudd's like looking out a door and the light's flickering and you see the shadow and you see the damn unicorn, and then like there's a jump scare, of course. The usage of that like was kind of like alien-esque, like especially with its mouth, and then like even like if you ever play Five Nights at Freddy's where like you're watching one of the cameras and then boom, he's gone, and then all of a sudden he jumps out. It's things like that. And I thought the horror was nailed down in that aspect. I think the horror and the comedy was great, and it was fun for that. But now you're going to ask me, well, Zach, why didn't you love this movie then? And honestly, I don't really know. I think there's things I expected a little bit more from this movie. I think I wanted a little bit more of all of that. It was all fun for what it was, but it never left like a lasting impression on my way home of like me buzzing, being like, oh my God, I got to tell all my friends about this. And I think one of the biggest things I can say about this is I actually wish the film went weirder. I wish the film went more over the top. I wish the film went more towards that satirical nature with mythical creatures. I think there were 1,000 different ideas. On paper, the initial concept, really clever. But there's like 4 different ideas stemming from that consequence of them hitting a unicorn with their car that I very much think they could have gone down. And I didn't think they chose the most fun or again, the most unique thing. Like the concept alone is really cool. But yeah, like we've seen satires making fun of the medical industry and things like that. And it's very on the nose in here and it's funny for what it is. But I feel like there's more that you could have done there. That you could have dealt with the side effects of like using unicorns as like medical miracles. You very much could have. And if you didn't want to go on that route, then yeah, I guess you could say the consequence is like death because of like other things happening. But like I imagine that like you could have had a little bit more fun with that. Like what happens when people use unicorn blood in here? You couldn't have thought of something to that. I also think with like maybe adding more mythical creatures, or maybe this whole wilderness thing that he's in is all for magical creatures. I know the budget may not have held for that, but you could have at least mentioned it. World building, it's that weird abstract stuff that A24 is usually known for. And for the most part, like this is a very mainstream horror comedy that like if anyone asked me about it, I'd be like, yeah, it's fun. Like go watch it. Like if the concept intrigues you, you should see it. But I think for A24 junkies, I think they might be a little bit disappointed in this and kind of like wish they got more from it other than just, oh, it's Jurassic Park basically, but as like a horror satire. That's fun. I don't have too much more to say about the film because other than that, I just wanted more from it. Death of the Unicorn to be one part Jurassic Park and part horror satire towards the medical industry. It's fun for what it is, especially when people start to get murdered by unicorns, but I left the theater wanting more. I think some audience members will very much leave from that. I think they'll leave having fun with this, but maybe having that lingering feeling, and I felt like that's kind of really how I left this movie. I enjoyed it. I just wasn't blown away by it. And I feel like I should have been. I feel like I should have walked out of this and been like, man, there's some fucking crazy shit that happened in here. But I came home and like my wife like knew what the concept was. And she's always like excited to hear like, oh, what's the weird thing that happened? It's an A24 movie. And maybe if it's not even an A24 movie, it's just this concept. What it was, I was like, oh, it's like Jurassic Park. That's about it. If I was doing this, I mean, I would have pulled a Sorry to Bother You and changed some shit where people would turn it into unicorns. Like genuinely. Alert for Sorry to Bother You if you've never seen that. If you've seen the movie, you understand that reference. But overall, Death of the Unicorn's a fun time. I don't think it's going to blow anyone's mind. So with all that said, I'm going to give this film a B-. Thank you so much again, guys, for watching. Make sure to hit that like and subscribe button. Comment down below your guys' thoughts. And of course, until next time, stay classy.